Hello everyone, Godre here, and this is my morning brief. On this episode of Morning Brief, I want to talk about the latest GDP report. In case you missed it, the National Bureau of Statistics released Nigeria's second quarter GDP numbers, and according to the MBS, Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.19% in the second quarter of 2024. This is much better than what we had in the corresponding period of 2023, and I think we had 2.51% back then. This is basically the best second quarter GDP that we've had, I think, since 2021 or so. So the economy is growing. The numbers are quite, even though 3.19% is still small, but it came strong because first quarter we did 2.98%. If you dig further down, if you drill down, you would see that on a grouping basis, because the MBS groups the economy in three main buckets: agriculture, industrial, and industries, and of course services. So agriculture, speaks for itself. So that's agri economy, which is one of the biggest aspect of the economy. And then, of course, industries are like manufacturing and all that. And then, of course, services. So, in case you don't know, Nigeria is mostly a service based economy with over 58% of the economy being services. And then agriculture is next with about 20 something percent. And of course, you have industries. Industries, first quarter of the year was 20%. But it dropped to 18.6% in the second quarter. So, and agriculture now rose to about 22%, and services 58%. So, services continues to dominate as the largest main sector in the economy. So, in terms of GDP, GDP grew by 1.4%. Compared to the first quarter of the year, it was 0.18%. So the growth was even faster in the second quarter, 1.4%. And of course, the industries as well also grew from 2.19% in the first quarter to 3.53% in the second quarter. So, of course, GDP is quarter on quarter. So it's second quarter of this year versus second quarter of last year, right? So, but we're also comparing on a quarter on quarter basis. So, in terms of services grew 3.79%, a bit lower than the growth that I recorded in the first quarter, which was 4.32%, but still some growth. So the major driver here was agric, because agric went from 0.18% in the first quarter to 1.41. So that's why GDP for Q2 was much faster than GDP for Q1. Now, what is interesting is that this GDP numbers is happening in a quarter where a lot of you would agree that Nigerians experience a lot of challenges, especially with exchange rate depreciation, high inflation, poverty. People were basically complaining. Businesses were also groaning. Even the purchasing managers index, which is one major indicator for how businesses see the economy, was a bit gloomy as well. So I was actually surprised to see these numbers coming this strong, even though, again, 3% or thereabout is really not where we want to be in terms of GDP growth rate. But considering all the, economic hardships and all the macroeconomic headwinds that we've been seeing, these numbers are pretty decent. And looking right into the numbers itself. So, I thought to drill down, and I kind of noticed that some sectors were actually like the major drivers of some of this, of this growth. And I did a little bit of analysis, which you would also see in my screen for the sectors that were driving GDP growth rate. And it was mostly some of these smaller sectors, maybe like I think it was mining or thereabout, that was like the major driver of GDP growth rate. So I have here metal ores, growing at 58%, rail transport at 57%. Pretty small sectors in terms of their contribution. But there were also financial institutions, which I think has about 6% or so contribution to GDP. That one grew at 30%, which is banks. So banks have been experiencing solid growth. So banks were a major driver. Insurance as well, 13%. And then you now have crude production, or crude petroleum, which is 10% growth. And then, of course, somewhere in there is telcos also growing at 5%, even though telcos used to record double digit growths before every quarter. But telcos have been struggling for a bit now. And so they've now gone from double digit growth to single digit growth. And of course, you now have transport somewhere in there. So those, basically is what I'll call the top 10 sectors. Now, one sector that kind of interests me is trade. Trade is a major sector in the economy. When trade does well, GDP tends to also do well. But trade came in at just 0.7%, which is was quite surprising to me because trade, at some point last year, I think similarly, second quarter last year, if I'm not mistaken, trade was doing around, third quarter last year, or second quarter last year, trade was doing around 4%, and then third quarter 5%. So trade has fallen to 0.7%, and perhaps reflective of what a lot of businesses are going through, because Nigeria is basically a trade economy as well. So that, as basically is the GDP report. So what does this mean in a nutshell? That we're doing 3 point something percent now. GDP growth rate is a good thing. Like I said, it means that despite all the hardship we have in the economy, the businesses are still growing. So things are not maybe as bad as they seem. Well, according to the NBS data, reality might be something else. But according to their data, things might not be as bad as they think. We've gone through foreign currency depreciation, we've gone through subsidy removal, we've seen inflation skyrocket to over 30%, but they are saying that the economy overall is growing, even though at a small rate. We do need the GDP to grow faster than population growth. Population growth is at slightly over 5%. Some will argue that it's even way higher than 5% annually. So you want your GDP numbers to be growing faster than that, because that way people can then sort of survive, or people can at least the economy is that it's growing at the pace at which the population is growing, and so there's a lot more for everyone. So 3% is not really where we should be, but the fact that we're even growing at that rate was a surprise to me. So I would take that as a win any day, but there's still a lot of work to do. We need to see GDP growth rate at above 5% per quarter. It's going to take a lot to get there. We're still facing a lot of headwinds. The economy is still under dire straits. Businesses are still hustling and suffering. But let's just take this as a win. And it's good for your business as well that this is happening, because overall it means that, maybe economy is not really as bad as we think. And so we might want to re-strategize in terms of our investment plans. So it's probably getting better now. So maybe it's time to start to look at investing in key areas of the economy as things start to pick up. All right, so that's my money brief. But right on the screen here, you would see the fastest growing sectors or subsectors in the Nigerian economy. And just for your education, I think it's important to know that these are the 10 fastest growing sectors in the economy. That is my money brief, and hope you have a profitable day ahead. Bye.